Right.
That used to be me. I'd love to know how it changed to dots and how it changed from dots. I have no idea.
Who are the two dots?
Is it me?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Can you change me?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Welcome to the advisory committee meeting of April 22nd, 2025. We have a slight change in the order for this evening because of availability of the person who's actually going to be writing up the report on the climate change superfund article. So we're actually going to start with a discussion of warrant article 23. Then we'll move on to a public hearing, discussion and vote on warrant article 25. And then we'll move on to warrant article 20, and this item here is a mistake. If there's anybody, many members of the public who wish to comment on any of the items on the agenda tonight other than the climate change superfund warrant article, this would be a perfect time to drop your name in the chat and we'll call on you. And if you're going to comment as a member of the public on warrant article 25, you can hold off until our public hearing starts in a few minutes. So Harry, go ahead.
Okay, I will start then.
I'm sorry, I was talking to Harry
Oh, sorry.
Fruman to see if there's any members of the public, because it looks like Elisa.
There are not.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Elisa Plazonia. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I would like to urge, first of all, Elisa Plazanja, Naples Road, Precinct 8, and I would like to urge the advisory committee to support Article 20, which would ban the sale of foie gras within Brookline. As the petitioners have detailed in their article, the production of foie gras inflicts significant cruelty on the ducks whose lives are taken for their engorged livers. Brookline has an admirable track record opposing animal cruelty. In 2016, 83% of Brookline voters supported Proposition 3, which banned the cruel confinement of certain farm animals. And since then, the town has adopted several other measures initiated by the same petitioners as for Article 20, like banning the sale of fur. So I would urge the advisory committee to support this article so that we can continue the momentum here in Brookline. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dennis, that appears to be it.
Okay, so now we can get our report from Administration and Finance on warrant article 23.
23.
Yeah, pick a number.
23 sounds good.
23 sounds good. Okay. And that's supposed to be followed by Skidoo. This is an article that is brought by Mike Toffel, who's here, and Alec Lebovitz. I don't see him, but he may be on the other page with us.
Here.
Okay. The article as it appears in the warrant is one that would actually change our bylaws. And so, and to give away the ending, what's going to be offered is a resolution, not an actual bylaw change. So you may recall over the last couple of years, we've been having conversations. We've had a number of rather in-depth conversations with the town clerk during the town clerk's budget about the bylaws being available online, not simply available online, but in sort of as one cohesive dynamic document, whereby when something is voted upon at town meeting and it goes to the Attorney General and the Attorney General approves it and it comes back that in a timely manner, and what is specified is actually 10 days, when it comes back, that it is posted online and integrated into our current bylaws so that anybody going online can find this information. And as the petitioners noted, and I don't know if it's a direct quote, but I am going to read it out of our report anyway. As they noted, democracy and the rule of law are predicated on transparency and the public's timely access to the most current laws. And one cannot fairly expect the public compliance with the law if they're not able to view or review those laws. And that's sort of what has motivated this. For the past couple of years, they've had conversations with the town clerk about this. As we know, from hearing from the town clerk, a lot of work has been done on it. Our bylaws now are in bits and pieces and documents, and when we do get amendments or new ones, he posts them up, but it's not cohesive. And so the town has been working with General Code. We've contracted with them in order to redigitize these documents and get them into one place so that we can change them as amendments occur. So far, we have done that with the zoning bylaws, and those are up and those are posted. What remains are our general bylaws. So zoning, general, two separate things. General bylaws are the ones that are not up yet. When the subcommittee met about this and had the conversation, one of the questions that we had is, since the zoning bylaws are already up, and we know that this is near fruition, is it necessary? And also, if we were going to change it legislatively, why are we just mentioning the general bylaws and not the zoning bylaws as well? We were told, well, the zoning bylaws now are no longer a problem. It's really the general bylaws, and they wanted to instigate that getting completed, which we're wholly sympathetic with, though we're not convinced that it should be by changing our bylaws. It was also pointed out that this is really kind of a performance metric, and that we don't tend to legislate that into the bylaws. That's rather through policy or through management. But certainly we heard them and we understood, and we know the conversations have been going a long time. Where things stand right now is the town clerk has done all of his work. Like I said, zoning bylaws are done, they're posted. The town clerk has done all of his work so far on the general bylaws. He has released that draft to departments so that departments can go through and check for accuracy, because as we know, a comma can make a difference. So they will do that. When that is done, it has to go to town meeting, presumably this fall. Town meeting legally has to ratify this. Once they do that, then it goes to the Attorney General. And when the Attorney General has approved it, it can then be posted online. So in the conversations back and forth, we had 2 meetings on this. As I said, we weren't convinced that it should be legislative, but we understood the urgency and the frustrations held not just by the petitioners, by others. So the subcommittee decided that it should be in the form of a resolution for town meeting by town meeting, where town meeting can express its concern, its will that it get done in a timely manner, acknowledge that it understands that the town clerk sort of walked into this on day one and has been working on it, but that it's not done yet. And also to remind all of us who are involved in the budget that when we ask the town clerk to do some task, whether it's this or others, to be mindful that that may require more resources. So that is embodied in the motion as a resolution. And that is what the subcommittee voted to offer. Since then, there have been some changes made to that by the petitioners themselves, so they will be offering different language. I see Neil Gordon here, who is the chair of the subcommittee, so I'm going to pass it to him in terms of actually providing a motion for us to consider here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Yeah, that's where the subcommittee left off. Subsequently, there were additional conversations with the town clerk and with the town staff. And there is an updated memorandum of understanding among the parties as to performance metrics and performance in general. That caused the petitioners to rewrite, essentially starting with the petition as approved by the subcommittee, as recommended by the subcommittee. There were some changes made. It was updated. It was revised into their voice, if you like, which is fine with me. I reviewed them. I compared them. I find that the petitioner's changes are wholly consistent with the intent of the subcommittee and consistent with the recommendation of the subcommittee. And so I think that the petitioners can very briefly explain the changes that they made subsequent to the last subcommittee meeting. And I'm satisfied, and I will be moving petitioner's version of the resolution.
And
Mr.
just,
Top-
just as a
sorry.
heads up, so that Mike knows this as well, when it comes, there's a couple of slight amendments I would like to make to the language. And maybe it doesn't have to be done through an amendment, but just as a heads up.
All right, Mr. Toffel, would you like to add anything to the subcommittee report, in particular, the explanation for what motion we are probably going to be voting on tonight?
Yeah, thanks, Harry and Neil. The big change that happened from the time when we had met with the subcommittee, we also had a select board hearing, and in that process, I had a lot of conversations with our town clerk, and who agreed with the intent, but preferred it not to be a bylaw. So what we did is we agreed on language in the MOU between the select board moderator and town clerk that essentially embeds the spirit of what we were seeking in this warrant article. So you have this in your packet as far as the MOU being an exhibit to our proposal. And I'll just highlight for you the pieces in particular that were added over the past 2 weeks. And that is section D, items 2 and 3, and I'll just read them for your convenience. Within 10 days after Attorney General approval of any bylaws, the town clerk office will, part 2 says, post to the town website the approved changes sorted via bylaw section temporarily until the full bylaw is updated. And number 3, coordinate with the moderator to ensure town meeting members are notified of the approved changes. So those were the elements that were added to the MOU, which should look familiar compared to the spirit of what warrant article 23 was trying to accomplish. So with this being agreed by the moderator, town clerk, and select board, we pivoted to offer a resolution, which really is calling for a town meeting to support and be aware of this MOU so that they have a better understanding of what happens once we pass our bylaws. And we think this is a good path forward. And I'll pause there to see if Alec has anything else to add, and otherwise we're here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. I'm nothing much to add. I think that was a really comprehensive overview between yourself, Harry, and Neil. I'll just add that, you know, we were really pleased, I think, with Ben Kaufman's willingness to work with us throughout the process, and particularly to open up the MOU to amendments, and also appreciative to moderator Neil Wyshynski and the select board for doing their part to approve that as well. So looking forward to your questions and comments. Thanks.
So with that, we'll go to questions and comments.
And the first question or comment is from nobody.
There we go. There's an
Jocelyn
comment
Murphy.
from Jocelyn.
Didn't want to disappoint. No, I just wanted to thank the petitioners. You know, I know this has been a very frustrating road. It's been frustrating for many years, but I would really like to compliment them on their willingness to listen to the concerns raised by Ben Kaufman and some of the comments that were raised by the committee. So kudos to them, and you know, I appreciate their work on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Harry Bors, maybe you'd like to go through whatever amendments you have?
Sure. On the 1, 2, 3, on the fourth whereas, second line, updating the general bylaws. General bylaw, I believe, should be capital, sort of like our zoning bylaw. Those are general bylaws.
Right here, you mean?
You want me to squint, don't you? Yes. Yeah, in general, as opposed to the zoning. Yeah, that's all.
A general bylaw Yeah, I mean, that's a Scrivener's change.
Yeah,
I
that's
assume,
that's fine.
so
Okay.
I don't
And
care
then
about
then the
that.
two more substantive, which is I hope not taken offense by the petitioners. I just think as a general practice, I would say this. There are two places that are sort of self-referential to the petitioners themselves, and the article number. And I just, in other resolutions, I found that a little bit distracting because people aren't going to remember what Article 23 is necessarily in a few years. And also, it has struck me in the past when I look at it, it reads a little bit as though it's placating petitioners when it's really not meant to, because I think this is actually a good resolution. It accomplishes a lot, and in particular that we have a new amendment to the MOU. So I would suggest, and people may or may not agree, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th whereas, third line, after town clerk's office, after the words office, I would strike that address the desire of the petitioners of warrant article 23. So it just reads commitments by the town clerk's office to ensure.
And is there going to be another suggestion, or is that the?
Yeah, yes,
the-
and then likewise in the now therefore be it resolved in the second paragraph. Agreement by the town clerk and moderator, and then after that, I would strike out working with petitioners to find administrative solutions to meet the objectives of warrant article 23, and just say agreement by the town clerk and moderator to notify the public and town meeting members of the bylaw updates within 10 business days.
All right, so before we to see if those are amendments, I'm curious to hear what the petitioners say to both of those comments.
Can I make one quick comment on this is the recommended deletion of the petitioner's language in the first whereas that was referenced?
Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
No, it was
No.
reference to the petitioners, to the concept of
Yeah,
petitioners.
in the language, Harry.
right,
you said-
reflecting back on the warrant article number.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, in two places. So, anyway.
It's the part where you you remove the reference to the petitioners. I'd like to consider inserting there, and I think it's a simple change, the appropriate language for town meeting. I think that this is town meeting's resolution,
Right.
and I think that, you know, the more broadly than the petitioners, the concept is the same, but it's, you know, it's town meeting's resolution that's who's voting it.
I agree. I think we want to focus on this is coming from town meeting as a collective voice that we are concerned about this. We understand the history, but we would like this brought to resolution, and point out that we also want to be understanding that we need to support the town clerk's office when we expect them to do these large tasks.
I'd like to hear from Mike or Alec.
Sure. So I understood the proposals Harry offered. I couldn't tell whether Neil and Harry's conversation was resulting in additional proposed changes.
Yeah, I couldn't either. So I just want to hear what you think about Harry's change first.
Okay, sure. So we'll start with Harry's changes. So Alec and I are both fine with the 3 changes that Harry suggested.
Okay. All right. So I guess we need to have a little quick dialogue between Harry and Neil.
Yeah,
while
if
I
we
try
go
to.
back to
Just Neil, just Neil.
Yeah, if we go back to the first change that was suggested.
The 6th whereas clause where we were deleting that address the desire of the petitioners of warrant article 23.
Yeah,
I
he's-
think it's
he's-
that address let me make sure they get the tenses right here. But I like it to say address the
Desire of town meeting?
desire of town meeting.
Okay.
So right here, it would say desire of town meeting.
Desire of town meeting.
Right, to ensure that the public and town meeting members are promptly notified.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna just I'm going to write this down separately so that Lisa will have it for later. But Harry, you're going to have to rewrite this when you
Yep, that's fine.
submit this as a motion, and it will obviously go. You have to send it back to Melissa.
Yep.
Okay, and then so that's the desire of town meeting. And then what's the other change? It was down here in the resolved
It was-
clause. It
yeah,
was
it was-
right here,
It was a similar change. It was in the second paragraph.
right here. It
Yes,
was appreciates the agreement between town clerk and the moderator.
yes. And then
And you want to just get rid of everything out to the two. Unfortunately, for
Correct,
some reason,
correct,
it's not
yes.
this is not highlighting because it's a stupid
Yes.
PDF, but you want to eliminate everything in this range here.
to the two. Correct.
Neil, how does that sound to you?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So the proposal here then is that Harry and or Neil are going to recommend favorable action on an amended version of this resolution, which looks like what's on the screen now, with the two changes that Harry has just described, both of which are, and the three changes, it's also a scrivener's error in capitalizing general bylaw.
Yep.
I unfortunately can't easily seem to cut and paste this into a form where I can show that as a red line, but I think it's relatively understandable given our dialogue. So with your indulgence, I'll have Harry and Neil make that motion.
There's a
So
comment. There's a comment still.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Linda.
Well,
Oh.
wait a minute. Before we go to Linda, Ben Kaufman has entered the room. Do we want to give him a chance to comment, given that this regards his department?
Oh, sure. I didn't realize he was here. Ben, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Oh, hi, thank you. I apologize. I thought that this was an item later in the agenda, so I'm
It
joining
was.
a bit late. But no, I did not have any concerns as it is written. This is a memorandum of understanding that we worked on last year and then made some amendments, working with the petitioners to ensure that their concerns were addressed. The out-of-date town bylaws has been a major issue in my office. It's one of the things that I first ran on when I became the town clerk, and it's certainly something of grave importance. So having town meeting express their support for those efforts is something that's definitely in the interest of my office. So I don't have any other comments or revisions to the resolution as proposed.
Thank you. Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Thanks, Harry. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think I have read varying references to the 10 days time frame as in one place being 10 business days and somewhere else being 10 days. So if somebody in their redrafting and fixing of this can at least look at that and make sure that it's all consistent, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. No more comments, Dennis.
All right, go ahead, Mike. If you put your screen up to just very briefly show that language change, that would be great. And then I'll take it down so we can do our voting.
Sure. Let's see. Okay, so here's the first change, the general bylaw capitalization. The second change here, address the desire of town meeting instead of the petitioners. And town meeting appreciates it, instead of that, we just strike that.
Perfect.
And then do you want me to address the business days question that Linda asked?
Yes, please. If
So
there's inconsistency.
Sure. So the original warrant article was 10 business days. And so that's the language we're using here. The 10 days in the MOU is here within 10 days. That does not specify whether it's business days or calendar days. And so it's outside the scope of our
To change
resolution
that,
anyway.
yeah.
So this is maybe a question for Ben, but I would caution anyone changing our resolution from business days to days. Because I think you're going to have a scope problem if you do that, because it is shortening the deadline. And that's not our intent. Our intent was 10 business days, not 10 calendar days. So there is potentially a disparity there, but they're in different documents. I don't know, Ben, do you want to weigh in whether the 10 days in the MOU?
Let me make a comment. So town meeting, not the advisory committee nor town meeting are voting on the MOU. And to the extent that arguably the MOU is a couple of days faster action than is required by the resolution, so be it. They don't have to be the same. If it was vice versa, we might have an issue with it. But if it's 10 days for the clerk and for the MOU and 12 days for the resolution, that's not an issue.
Yeah, and I think if the clerk and everyone else involved in the MOU had intended business days, they can clarify that independently of this resolution. All right, can you stop sharing, Mike?
Yep.
And I will share so we can vote as amended. So the motion is for favorable action on warrant article 23 as amended. Boards changes, just so we know what we're talking about. Michael Berger. Is he not here? Ben Birnbaum.
Yes.
Harry Boers.
Yes.
Cliff Brown.
Yes.
Anthony Buono. Not here. John
He is
Divitt.
here.
Okay.
Anthony's here.
Speak
Sorry.
up.
Can you hold on? Yes.
Thank you. Catherine Florio.
Yes.
Harry Friedman.
Abstain.
David Mark Goldstein.
Yes.
Neil Gordon. What happened to Neil? He was just here.
He is here.
Susan Granoff.
Yes.
Perry Grossman.
Yes.
Elisa Jonas.
Yes.
Janice Kahn.
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz.
Abstain.
Carol Levin.
Yes.
Pam Lodish.
Abstain. I was late to the conversation.
Jocelyn Murphy.
Yes.
Donnell O'Neill.
Yes.
Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Yes.
Mark Penzel.
Yes.
Fran Perler.
Yes.
David Pollock.
Yes, and Neil Gordon put yes in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Lee Selwyn.
Yes.
Christine Westfall.
Yes.
Okay, and Neil is yes. All right, so by a vote of 20 in favor, none opposed, and 3 abstentions, are recommending favorable action on the amended version of warrant article 23. Mike, if you could send that red line to Lisa and to Harry, that would be great.
You got it.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to a public hearing now on warrant article 25. So if the petitioners are available, I think that means John Harris. Please outline what you're asking for the committee.
Dennis,
Yes.
do you want to give instructions for people who wish to comment?
Yeah, so we're going to start with the petitioner presenting the article, and then we will go to comments from the public, and then we will go to questions and comments from the committee. We'll close the
So
public part of the
if
hearing.
public wishes to comment, they can start putting their names in now.
Yes. Thank you. So if John is available.
Yes, I'm right here.
Great, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is John Harris. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 8. I'm also co-chair of Climate Action Brookline, or CAB, presenting a fitting welcome to Earth Day 2025. I'm joined by Dan Zakin, the Massachusetts State Coordinator of the Make Polluters Pay campaign, of which warrant Article 25 is a part, and I will explain that in a minute. Dan may or will introduce himself later. Warrant Article 25 originated at Climate Action Brookline. We have 16 co-petitioners. It has been endorsed by Climate Action Brookline, by Brookline Mothers Out Front, and we're told that the Brookline High School Climate and Food Justice Club is very, quote, enthusiastic about it. We'll be scheduling a formal endorsement meeting with them shortly after school vacation. We are working according to a principle called polluters pay, which is now clear precedent in environmental regulation, having been employed in all major U.S. pollution control laws, including the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the original Superfund Acts, which are federal programs to clean up abandoned hazardous waste sites in response to the debacle at Love Canal and elsewhere. The Superfund Act was passed in 1980, amended in 1986. In 1990, President Clinton issued an executive order focused on environmental justice communities. The act has been buttressed by Supreme Court cases against Exxon, Atlantic Richfield, etc., and the act is administered by the EPA. Competently, at least until this point. Why do we have to take such an extreme measure of wanting a new Superfund? The blurb of Nathaniel Rich's excellent and important book, Losing Earth, says, quote, by 1979, we knew nearly everything we understand today about climate change, including how to stop it, unquote. But instead of folding the costs of containing greenhouse gas emissions into their pricing, the fossil fuel companies became, quote, merchants of doubt, as science writer Naomi Oreskes put it, and engaged in a massive campaign of denial and obfuscation about the dangers of greenhouse gases. The costs have just kept rising, and here we are with a rapidly warming Earth. The Make Polluters Pay movement began as a national movement, culminating in the federal Polluters Pay Climate Fund Act of 2024, which then rolled over into 2025 and was introduced in the United States House and Senate. But the lack of action there, and given the changed political situation, the campaign is now focusing on the states. In Massachusetts, the state campaign asks each municipality to pass resolutions in support of, quote, an act establishing a climate change superfund, which has been filed with the Massachusetts House and Senate. The payers into the Massachusetts Climate Fund Superfund are U.S.-based and foreign-owned fossil fuel extractors with ties to Massachusetts that were responsible for at least 1 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide and methane gas emissions globally between 1995 and 2024. The fund would enable would request those or require those companies to pay billions of dollars over 25 years, with each company's share proportional to their contribution to greenhouse gas emissions between 1995 and 2024. The program would be managed by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, which would conduct a, quote, climate cost study, unquote, that will assess climate damage, assess the cost of that damage using reasonable estimates, and identify the responsible parties using scientifically peer-reviewed methodologies. It would then allocate proportionate cost recovery demands and monitor payments over 25 years. It would then offer the sums collected to entities such as the town, capital T, of Brookline, for a wide range of mitigation and adaptation projects, such as transit infrastructure upgrades, building weatherization, urban tree canopy improvements, coastal protections, wetland restorations, etc. Projects would be chosen by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Let's see, again, the campaign is now focused on states. In 2024, the state of Vermont with its recent summertime floods and the state of New York with memories of Hurricane Sandy passed climate superfund bills. California and Minnesota, their legislatures are now considering doing so. And in Massachusetts, Malden, Medford, Cambridge, and Boston have passed resolutions. And as we speak, several more cities and towns are engaged in campaigns just like this one. Let's see. This is a resolution, and I am happy to report in my conversation with Representative Vitolo, he loves his word. The idea this is a resolution and not a home rule petition. I love it for the same reason. This is an additional reason to support it. If the state bill succeeds, it will prove the efficacy of going the resolution track and avoiding the issues associated with excessive numbers of home rule petitions. We've been asked, does it have a serious chance of passing, or is it just a publicity stunt? I suggest it is just as serious as the chemical waste, U.S. Superfund bills, the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Water Act, and other environmental bills, all of which were considered impossible, considered bridges too far, but which passed and have been very effective. The Massachusetts legislative leadership is serious about this. Remember, the Massachusetts passed significant climate legislation in 2021, 2022, and 2024. By the way, lead sponsor, Senator Jamie Eldridge, had a major role in passing several of those bills. Let's see. If it fails, or if it is only a publicity stunt, it will still be useful. First, as symbolic importance, if anything deserves a Superfund, the climate crisis certainly does. More importantly, due to its educational component. The resolution has been debated extensively at recent Climate Action Brookline and Mothers Out Front meetings. As I said, it will be debated by the Brookline High School Climate and Food Justice Club soon, and perhaps by other groups in town. And finally, the issue will be debated on the floor of town meeting in front of hundreds of politically active Brookliners. The concern we've heard about cost to the town, capital T. The only obligations of the town, the final reserve clause asks the town clerk to send a copy of the resolution to Senator Cream, Representatives Vitolo and Schwartz, the House Speaker, the Senate President, and the Governor. No formal follow-up is required. So, apart from an hour or so of staff time, no cost to town government or to Brookline taxpayers. In fact, if the state bill is successful, it would lead to a significant increase in funding for which Brookline could apply for a Christmas list for a myriad of climate-related projects. However, responding to feedback we have gotten, I suggest the AC consider the risk to the town of political exposure. Our AC questionnaire includes a link to an article describing how in February, led by the fossil fuel states of West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Kentucky, several states filed suit challenging New York's Climate Change Superfund Act on the grounds that such regulation is properly the purview of the federal government. But the Make Polluters Pay campaign has increased its focus on the states precisely because the federal government has been shirking in its duty. And note these states are suing a state government that passed actual legislation and not a municipality that has only passed or hopefully will pass a resolution. Also, Brookline is under crossfire for immigration and university funding issues. And also in your packet, I've included an article how about 2 weeks ago, President Trump issued an executive order also claiming federal hegemony regarding the issue. I note that, according to the New York Times, the fossil fuel industry has donated more than $75 million to Mr. Trump's presidential campaign, I believe the second campaign. Again, New York Times. Would town meeting passing this resolution cause the administration to put a laser focus on Brookline? I recommend you consider the issue, but again, there are bigger fish to fry, and Warrant Article 25 is not legislation. Warrant Article 25 is not radical. To conclude, it is sensible. The principle of you dirty it, you clean it up is one we're all taught as kids. In passing Warrant Article 25, Brookline would be acting in consort with other leading states and with several Massachusetts municipalities. I urge the AC to vote favorable action on Warrant Article 25, and Dan Zackin and I are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will go to comments from the public now, and then we'll take up questions and comments from advisory committee members.
John Bowman.
Thank you. John Bowman, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. I'm here to voice my support for warrant Article 25. For the sake of future generations, we need to hold polluters accountable. And at this time, when democracy in this country is under threat, it is not a time to be cowed by fear of retribution from the Trump administration. The environment needs this bill, and our democracy needs us to stand in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Heineman.
Yeah, Bill Heineman, Gibb Street, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. I'm also a CAB board member, a member of the Zero Emissions Advisory Board, and a co-petitioner on this resolution. John Harris and John Bowman have explained very well why I think this is a good move, and I hope the advisory committee votes favorably to support the resolution.
Thank you. Do any other members of the public wish to comment? If you do, please put your name in the list in the chat now. Dan Zakin.
Hi all, and thank you, John, for the introduction. I'm Dan Zakin. I'm not a Brookline resident, but I hope I'm still entitled to speak here.
Go ahead.
I'm the legislative manager with 350 Mass, a statewide network of climate activists, including many in Brookline, and the co-lead of the statewide Make Polluters Pay campaign. And I just want to add a little bit of context to what John was saying, which fantastic presentation, John. This campaign is about building a really broad coalition, which includes municipalities, but also includes labor, youth groups, environmental justice advocates, public health workers, and your typical climate and progressive groups. And those groups are reflected both in how we're running this campaign. For example, some of our youth allies passed another resolution similar to this one in Northampton just last Thursday, and in the content of the bill itself. So the bill dictates that 40% of the funds that are distributed under the Superfund go towards projects that directly benefit environmental justice communities, and that workers on the projects are paid a prevailing wage, that they're treated according to fair labor standards, and there are opportunities for apprenticeship programs. There's more that I'm happy to get into, and I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have, but this campaign is about both realizing the just transition that we so sorely need and building the coalition that can really win it. So you all here is part of that people power that we're putting together to get this bill over the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Dennis, that's it for public comment.
All right, so we're going to end our public hearing now and move to our public meeting, and we can start with questions and comments from subcommittee. From the full committee.
Anthony Buono.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for talking about this. This is really great. I'm very much in support of this, but I do have a question about how the money by the municipality that it receives back from the Superfund can be used. John Harris, I think you gave a list of things that it could be utilized for. Dan, you said climate-related activities. I want to know how specific that is. Like one example, we know that denser housing is better for, carbon emissions. Is like affordable housing included in that? Like, is this something we've used for? Like, how narrow is the usage of this money if it's passed by the state legislature? That question's to John or Dan, whoever has the capacity.
Yeah, Dan, I'm looking through the bill because there's an entire page of options on this, but until I find it, if you could get started on this one.
Yeah, so what John's referencing is the definition section of the bill. I think it's on the first or second page, which has a pretty long list under climate change adaptation projects of what is acceptable to be funded. You'll notice it's an incredibly broad list. It includes coastal defenses and urban greenery, as well as building weatherization. I don't think that affordable housing is explicitly listed there, but I think there are workarounds. So for example, Mass Save is a building weatherization program, but it does a lot to make energy cheaper and make living more affordable for people. And so there are ways that we can have co-benefits to these programs that achieve multiple goals.
Cool.
Yeah, happy to say more on that. But if you want the full list, it'll be on the first page of the actual bill text itself.
I'll look
Yeah,
there. I'll look there.
I found it. It's actually page 2, and it is half the page. Just it says projects may include, but are not limited to. Just stop me when you've heard enough. Upgrading stormwater drainage systems, making defensive upgrades to roads, bridges, subways, and transit systems, preparing for and recovering from hurricanes, drought, heat waves, blizzards, severe storms, wildfires, flooding, and other extreme weather events, implementing nature-based solutions for coastal and flood protections and otherwise, undertaking preventative health care programs and providing medical care to treat injury or illness caused or aggravated by the effects of climate change, relocating, elevating, or retrofitting sewage treatment plants vulnerable to flooding, installing energy-efficient cooling systems and other weatherization or energy efficiency upgrades and retrofits. Here's your question, Anthony. Upgrades and retrofits to public or private buildings, including schools and public housing.
Awesome.
Upgrading parts of the electrical grid to increase stability and resilience, including supporting the creation of self-sufficient clean energy microgrids, addressing urban heat island effects through green spaces, urban forestry or other interventions, responding to toxic algae blooms, loss of agricultural topsoil, and other climate-driven ecosystem threats to forests, farms, fisheries, and food systems. Again, included all of those, but not limited to all of those. There's wide discretion
Perfect,
in the
John.
list.
Thank you so much, John.
Very deliberate.
Thank you. Pam Lotus.
I have 2 questions. One has to do, when I read through all of it, the cost of, you're getting all this, assuming it passes and it becomes our state law, we will get a lot of money from these people who are the companies that are the biggest polluters. However, it's when I read in somehow it said something about from their profits, you're going to take money, but how are you going to ensure that the consumers, when they pass this law, aren't going to get higher utility rates? That's my first question.
Yeah, happy to take that one. And thank you for that. That's a really pressing one right now. We need to make sure that climate action doesn't come at the cost of people who can't afford it. The way that Make Polluters Pay is structured, the Climate Superfund bill is structured, is intentionally very different from a carbon tax, which would just be flat across the board and be very easily passed on to consumers. This bill is structured so it only targets the biggest oil and gas extractors. And note extractors, that does not include Eversource, that doesn't include National Grid, it doesn't include Unitil or any of the municipal light plants. It's companies that themselves extract, or their subsidiaries extract fossil fuels from the ground. And by only going after the biggest ones, we don't go after the whole market. And so for some of these companies to raise their prices, they'll be undercut by the rest of the market. And if they collude together to raise their prices, they're operating as an illegal cartel and can be punished accordingly. And so the market pressures actually force them to not pass this on to consumers. And we have some studies done by people who are far more well-versed in economics than me, and I'm happy to share those with the council or with any individuals who are interested. If it's okay with the council, I'd love to put my email in the chat for folks who want to reach out with further questions after the meeting.
Can you give us a name of, give us an example of a company that might fit into this super?
Yeah, they're advertising in Boston right now. Citgo, Shell, Exxon, Chevron, BP, British Petroleum, or I guess Beyond Petroleum now. These big fossil fuel giants that are household names.
All right, but then they operate throughout the United States. So how is Massachusetts going to get its share of money?
So we pass this bill and we say this is about damages that are happening to Massachusetts or that are anticipated to happen to Massachusetts. And we strongly encourage other states to pass their own bills as well. And we work pretty closely with the campaigns in other states. There's one that actually just started up in Rhode Island, Maryland, New Jersey, The New York and Vermont ones were successful, Minnesota, California. And so we're trying to build a statewide movement around this, not saying that all of the damage that these companies have done, they owe to Massachusetts, but that there is a proportional amount of the damage that's going to come for us that we need compensation for. And they will pay according to the proportion that they are responsible for.
All right, and my next question is, when you mentioned something about 25 years, this fund goes 25 years, something like that. But when do you start making the payments from it? Do you have to wait 25 years to start paying it out, or are you going to start as you receive the funds?
So the way it's structured is we don't demand all the money upfront. The bill is structured so that they can pay it in installments, and the maximum length of time, which we assume they'll go for, but they have an option under the text of the bill, is to pay over 25 years.
So you're going to come up with an amount of money that's attributed to Massachusetts, and they're going to then have 25 years to pay it, is what you're saying.
Yes, and there's a rate that they have to pay it at. And I just want to be clear, I will not be coming up with the amount of money.
No.
The very, very smart people at the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs will do studies that are with close oversight from other various departments that represent other constituencies around the state.
Pam, yes, and the state of New York, in its estimates, again, it passed its version of this bill last year, 2024, and it estimates, again, after going through legal appeals, bureaucratic regulation writing, et cetera, that money may start flowing in. They're estimating in the year 2028, and for 25 years beginning then.
Can they can they go to court and hold it up for the next 25 years? These companies?
So they can hold it up for some time, and they likely will. Their industry representatives directly sued Vermont, and their stooges in the Attorney General's offices of West Virginia and other states sued New York, but they can't hold it up forever. And we're still going to need this money, even if it takes 5 or 7 years for the court proceedings to go.
Okay.
Pam, and also just a reminder, I can remember when the Chemical Waste Superfund Act was passed, and I can remember the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. All of them were considered major, impossible things to get passed at the time. But in fact, they did pass, they became reality, and I'm sure there was a lead time of legal challenges, et cetera, that delayed imposition of them, but they did get going, and they have proved to be extremely effective.
I don't want you to think, any of you to think that by me asking these questions that I'm not supportive, just I'm writing the report, so I want to make sure I have all the information.
Thank you for doing that. And no, critical questions are very, very important with an issue like this.
I'm finished.
Thank you. David Mark Goldstein.
Thank you. And thank you, Pam, for asking a number of the questions I was going to ask. And thank you for John for talking about the New York study that I'm guessing they've completed it already. And I was also very in favor of it until I heard Dan's remarks just now. Now I'm really on the fence because I think the idea that they're not going to pass this on to consumers is an absolutely ridiculous argument. One of the questions I had was how we are going to tax out-of-state companies, especially if the oil company who drills it out of the ground, who the people were talking to, then sell it to another party who then sells it to Massachusetts gas stations and utilities and so on. So how do we actually enforce something for a company that's out of state and not based in Massachusetts? That's question one.
Yeah, that's a great question, David. And again, around the economic parts, I'm definitely not an economist, but I'm very happy to share the work of some of the economists who have worked on this campaign, who can make the case in more formal terms. In the question of how we have the legal authority to charge companies that aren't based in Massachusetts, that falls under the nexus requirements of the Constitution. And formal legal case says that we need to have a connection that includes extracting, refining, selling, or advertising in the state of Massachusetts. And almost every one of these companies advertise their products directly in Massachusetts.
Okay, I'm not sure I buy that, but okay. The other question I had was how much this is going to increase the cost of gasoline per gallon, how much this is going to increase the cost of heating our homes, especially after last winter when we had just record numbers of amount of bills here that we just did not expect to happen. If in your questionnaire, you state that this could raise billions of dollars for Massachusetts. And I'm still of the opinion that all those billions of dollars for Massachusetts will simply be passed on by the oil companies. They're not going to eat it. You know they're not going to eat it. So I'd like an idea of how much you estimate the heating bills for people will go up, how much will gas go up, and what is there in place in the state legislation to protect lower income people from having to pay higher gas prices and not being able to heat their homes in winter.
So we do not anticipate that this will raise prices. And I really do believe that because of what I said earlier about the market mechanisms and the fact that oil prices are not set by individual firms. They're set on the international level.
David, Mark, just a couple of things. First, on the issue, the problem of state enforcement of this, well, that is a concern. There's no question about it. Remember, this is being undertaken. The focus now is on state-based efforts, only because the national efforts are just not going to get passed now, at least for the next 4 years, right? A national effort would have no problem enforcing, price, fines, etc., right? The state, it may be a challenging situation. We have to work where we can, right? That's number one. And here, in answer to your last question was, clean energy sources are rapidly getting much cheaper. And, as part of the effort to kind of reduce, and honestly, a number of us would like to get us as close to eliminating fossil fuel use as we can, as soon as we can. The fact as clean energy sources undercut the pricing of fossil fuel products, well, that just accelerates that entire effort, right? And remember, all of these things, the reason for all of this, and this is very, very important, is the issue of what economists call externalities. Everybody, again, if you dirty it, you clean it up. Every part of the cost of whatever your product is should be reflected in the price you sell that product, right? You want to include all of your costs and a profit margin, et cetera, and that's how you price your product, and that's how you make money at it, right? Fossil fuel companies simply have not been internalizing their externalities. They dirty the environment. We've known they do that with they and other chemical companies do it with chemical pollutions. But again, since, as our writer said, since 1979, we basically have also known that the greenhouse gas chemicals are also, they're not cleaning those up as they refine each gallon of gasoline or whatever, right? And that's unbelievably irresponsible. So, the mass production of clean energy sources is happening at such a rapid rate that the costs of those things are going down astronomically. So that is what we hope replaces dirty fossil fuel use as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm certainly an environmentalist myself, and I'd love to see this happen, and I agree with you that it's not going to happen at the national level. We had a rule on pollution that goes over state lines, that the states downwind had to get some kind of compensation. That rule is now gone. So I'm not sure that this will ever see the light of day, although, you're absolutely right, and they need to pay, and they need to take responsibility for what they've done. But I don't see from a realistic point of view, most people, especially lower income people, are not going to have the money to change their heating systems, no matter how cheap it gets. And they're going to be paying for gas or oil or whatever. And if you're going to be charging billions of dollars to the utilities, they're going to pass it on to the consumer. I mean, that's just what they do. They're not going to just eat it, and their shareholders wouldn't allow them to. So without some protection for lower income people, without some clear idea of how we're going to tax this third party out of state company, especially if they create some shell companies and sell it to the shell company that sells it to another, then sells it eventually to Massachusetts, and doesn't do any direct advertising for it. There are problems, and I think people's heating bills could go way up, and once they see the price of gas going way up, there's going to be a backlash, and I think that's exactly not what we need right now. I'm still going to vote for this, but I really have some serious concerns about this. Thank
David,
you.
I appreciate the concerns. Let me also just remind us all that, there are the mass save programs regarding, energy, insulation of houses, et cetera. And the benefits are higher for lower income people, I believe, at least they used to be. They're also, another example in the world of transportation, many municipalities apparently in even Massachusetts are offering free vouchers for free e-bikes with income levels, et cetera, et cetera. So, and if we need to expand programs like that, we certainly can.
We just cut back mass pay. But I'm done.
Thank
John,
you.
I want to interrupt for a second and say that you will have an opportunity at the end of this debate to weigh in, and I would like to ask you to keep your responses to germane to the questions that are being asked right now, and then you'll have a chance to summarize at the end. But we should not be a back and forth with each member of the advisory committee throughout the evening.
Okay, sorry.
Thanks. No, it's okay. I didn't set that out at the beginning, so I don't take it personally.
Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Three quick comments. First, I'd like to thank John Bowman for his comment about standing up to the Trump administration and their policies. This is not the only warrant article where some might say, oh, gee, let's not stick our neck out. There's going to be a laser focus on Brookline. We have a gun control article that we recommended favorable action on. And we have a Save Our Democracy warrant article that we recommend favorable action on. And arguably, we could just sort of, put our heads down and do other things and be safe. And we're not doing that. And so I thank John for his comments. Secondly, some of you may know I'm on the board of Hudson River Sloop Clearwater. It was founded by Pete Seeger. It was founded because the Hudson River and waterways in general were a disaster. Pete raised money at the grassroots level, played his banjo, passed it around, and literally raised in the tens and $20 getting started. He built a reproduction Hudson River sloop, collected petition signatures, went to Washington, and among other efforts, we ended up with a Clean Water Act. It was really, really grassroots. Grassroots works. If we all wait for somebody else to do it, nothing happens. My last comment, I heard mention of the resolution asking for a letter to be written by the clerk to Representatives Vitolo and Schwartz. I would suggest that the letter also be sent to Representative Kevin Honan and Bill McGregor. I suggest that modest expansion in scope will pass muster with the moderator.
Thank you. Catherine Florio.
Thank you, Harry. I'm wondering how this is going to interact with the work that the EPA does, and I'm confused. There's so much work that the EPA does now in the state of Massachusetts, in every state, to keep the air clean and pollution limited. I understand that it's not perfect. Different states have different levels of implementation, but also all this negativity about the current administration. It was under Nixon that some of the most significant enforcements some of the most significant amendments to the Clean Air and Clean Water Act were made. Neil mentioned them. So it's not entirely impossible that things could continue, but mostly my concern is that this might take away from the work that has already been done. For example, the Charles is Swimmable. That's been accomplished in the last 20 years, and that has been accomplished through the NPDES program, which is administered by the EPA. This seems like it's going to take money away from those programs, which have been successful, and move them to other programs. I'm wondering why that's a good idea.
Catherine,
That's it.
Could I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure where that's coming from. This would create a new source of revenue and would not take money from any current programs to
But
implement.
it sounds as if what you're going to do is punish polluters. And that's exactly what the EPA does. It goes after polluters, individual incidents, brings them to court, and has a list of punishments and a certain and has the ability to fine the companies dollars and require them to clean up the mess. How is what you're suggesting not going to interfere with the work that the EPA does?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The EPA, I believe, is no longer looking at carbon pollution as a source of pollution. So they might look at air particulate pollution still. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow with the rapid changes that we're seeing in Washington, D.C. But they don't currently have a form of liability written into state or federal statute that looks at the impact of carbon pollution and the way that it's caused runaway climate change. And so by creating this new form of liability on the state level, we empower our state agencies and our state Department of Environmental Protection to start to hold those companies accountable where they haven't previously. So this would be an addition to existing programs, not replacing them or stepping on their toes in any way.
I'm completely confused because I thought the EPA was a federal program and states had, and in states it was run differently, but it is a federally funded program. And you're suggesting that there be a state funded program as well. And I'm trying to understand how this isn't going to A, duplicate work, and B, step on the toes of the work that the EPA is currently doing. You're saying it's not doing it. I'm going to reiterate that some of the strongest protections to our air and water came under the Nixon administration. It's not impossible that this administration could go in that direction. It's unlikely, but it was unlikely that Nixon would have done it as well. And then there's the point of the overlap, for example, with the water and the NPDES permits. What NPDES does is it charges polluters for the pollution that they bring into the environment. There's an actual dollar price and they pay a permit. And the dollar price is used to clean up the mess. This sounds like there's a tremendous amount of overlap, duplicating the work and potentially taking money away from the federal programs that have been so successful. And so I'm trying to understand how this isn't going to undermine the work that the federal programs are still able to do. And it does vary from state to state. It does matter who is put into the roles and how they interact within the state. However, this is a federal program. So I'm completely confused about how this makes sense, how this fits into what's currently being done, and why the state of Massachusetts would want to undermine the EPA program here in the state, which has been so successful.
Dennis, could
Go
I
ahead.
respond or? Yeah,
Yes,
thank
please.
you. Basically, the person who's undermining the EPA as we speak is President Trump. He is literally pulling funding from this EPA program, that environmental program, et cetera, in huge amounts. The distinction is that Richard Nixon You know, he was president during the first Earth Day, the environmental movement, back to the land movement, etc. He did not care about these environmental causes. He simply allowed them to happen because he didn't care one way or the other. The first director of an agency, it might have been the EPA or another environmental agency, said that President Nixon never asked him how progress was going. I forget that director's name, regarding the Clean Water Act or whatever it was. This is in contrast to Donald Trump, who has explicitly, opposed environmental funding, environmental regulations, et cetera, et cetera. The Project 2025 is canceling funding for all of these things. So there's that on the one hand. On the other hand, I honestly could see in the future, Ruckelhaus, thank you very much, Marcus. That's correct. Yes. He said that Nixon never asked him once how progress was going. I could see that, if and when these programs get going at the state level, under a more favorable, federal administration, I could see those state programs being merged under a federal umbrella down the road. So, meanwhile, we've got 4 years of, we have to kind of move forward in however we can in this very strange
It was Nixon.
political
It was
environment.
Nixon who signed the Clean Air and Clean Water Act. So whether he followed up on it or not, it would not have existed if Nixon didn't sign it.
Well,
Okay,
he
can
signed
we-
it because
he didn't care one way or the other.
Then what you haven't answered is, I'm sorry, I haven't gotten an answer to the question how this is not going to take away from the work that's being done. I understand that much of the work has been currently defunded, but I don't understand how Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, is going to be able to start up, is going to be able to build these programs and not undermine what has been done. And that's the core question. And I haven't gotten it.
Thank you, Catherine. Lee Selwyn.
I have long believed in the concept of pollution taxes, so I in principle think this is a good idea. Whether mechanically this is going to have any importance in the grand scheme of things, I can't say. But I wanted to follow up on something that David Mark raised, which is the potential impact on heating costs. And there was the reference to Mass Save. A couple of weeks ago, I was interviewed on Channel 5 talking about the totally bogus discount program that the governor worked out with National Grid. That appearance prompted a phone call from someone at National Grid wondering if he could see what it was that was really bothering me. But in the course of that conversation, I got to talk to him about Mass Save because I never really fully understood precisely how it was funded. And now I have a much better sense of it. Roughly 1/4 of National Grid bills go to Mass Save. So the notion that this was the demand side management scheme that the utilities were going to pay for is totally bogus. Basically, in other words, Massachusetts ratepayers are paying about 30 to 35% more each month than they otherwise would to fund Mass Save. Now, I don't think that very many people know that. And if they did know that, I think they would be up in arms. And I think they should be, because programs like Mass Save, if they are to actually have some significance, should not be funded by ratepayers, but they should be funded more generally by the society at large. And what I'm afraid is that you end up in a situation where, as David Mark expressed a concern, if you impose pollution taxes on certain companies, that'll just be captured in the form of higher prices, and that comes back to consumers. We already see it happening with Mass Save, and I really think that to me is an example of totally out of control government overreach, because essentially they have a well-meaning program that they have basically decided to fund in a way that undermines its very purpose. And I'm afraid this is going to do the same thing. I will vote for it because I support pollution taxes, but I have the same concern that David Mark has.
Thank you, Lee. Dennis, there's no one else on the list.
All right. So in that case, we'll give petitioners an opportunity to have the last word, and then we'll go take a vote. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you. Just my last comment is in response to what Lee just said. When Mass Save was begun, and I've forgotten the name of the governor, the Democratic governor who started it, he was very open about, and the bills, it is that it was to be a surcharge on customer utility bills. And it is listed, I don't know what it's called, I hadn't prepared this, but it's listed on each person's bill. I honestly, Lee, didn't know it was as large a surcharge as you are reporting, but it has been openly a surcharge on utility bills
You will
since it
not
began.
find, it is on the Mass Save bill, I'm sorry, it is on a National Grid bill, but
Yeah.
you will not find it identified as a Mass Save surcharge. It is something like a distribution adjustment factor, I think is what or delivery adjustment factor, which, you know, I think, I mean, I've been working with public utilities for the last 60 years of my life, and I didn't know what the hell that meant. And I absolutely promise you that 99.99% of ratepayers in Massachusetts have no clue what that means. So, you know, if you want to be honest about it, call it a Mass Save surcharge. Nobody is doing that.
I agree with you.
Thank you. Dennis?
I'm hoping that someone will propose a motion related to warrant Article 25, and then we can take a vote.
I will move favorable action on warrant Article 25, despite the fact that I will not be voting for it.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to take a vote on a recommendation of favorable action on warrant Article 25. Ben Birnbaum,
No.
Harry Bors,
Yes.
Cliff Brown,
Abstain.
Anthony Buono,
Yes.
Catherine Florio,
Abstain.
Harry Friedman,
No.
David Mark Goldstein,
A reluctant yes.
Neil Gordon,
Yes.
Susan Granoff,
Yes.
Perry Grossman,
Yes.
Elisa Jonas,
Yes.
Janice Khan,
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz,
Yes.
Carol Levin,
Abstain.
Pam Lodish,
A reluctant yes.
Jocelyn Murphy.
Noting that I am a co-petitioner, yes.
Thank you. Donnell O'Neill. I don't hear Donnell. Linda Olson Pelkey.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Mark Penzel,
Although I don't think it was sustain as a Supreme Court challenge, I'm enthusiastic, yes.
Grant Perler,
Yes.
David Pollock,
Yes.
Lee Selwyn,
A reluctant yes, although again, I have expressed the concerns.
correct. Christine Westfall.
Abstain.
Donnell is here.
And Donnell. All right, I don't. Okay, maybe he stepped away. All right, so by a vote of 15 in favor, 2 opposed, and 5 abstentions, our recommendation is favorable action. I hope you got everything you need, Pam.
I'm going to listen to the recording, and then I just have to write up the report. That's it?
Yeah, I'll insert the vote and stuff, but I need a report, and this would be a good opportunity to remind people who are in the process of writing up reports that we need them soon, because I have to do a lot of editing between now and the beginning of May when I have to distribute everything to Melissa. And thank you to those who have sent me combined reports thus far. Thank you to the petitioners of this warrant article. We're all set to move on to our next item on the agenda.
Thanks to everybody. Thank you.
I don't
Bye.
know who's giving the subcommittee report on the foie gras.
Murphy.
Great, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the petitioners Ezra Kleinbaum and Shira Fisher, accompanied by Aviv, Hannah Makari, and Makari from Brookline High School. So foie gras is a delicacy that is made from the liver of ducks or geese that have been force-fed, typically by pumping large quantities of food through a long tube inserted deeply into their esophagi. This is considered to be inhumane because force feeding in this manner reportedly causes tremendous stress, compromises behavior and liver function, and often damages the esophagi of these animals. The petitioners are introducing this article in an effort to promote local action and support statewide legislation prohibiting the sale of foie gras, similar to earlier successful efforts to ban the sale of fur and prohibit traveling circuses in Brookline. They noted that there are similar bans in California and Pittsburgh. However, if approved, this would likely be the first in Massachusetts. Reportedly, there are 2 large foie gras farms in the United States, one in New York, the other in Minnesota. And foie gras is typically produced by force-feeding ducks known as the moulard duck. Beginning at between 10 to 14 weeks of age, these animals are force-fed 2 to 3 times a day for up to a month, causing their livers to become grossly enlarged and fatty. The petitioners believe this article is necessary because there are currently no foie gras farms in Massachusetts. Federal law does not prohibit the production or sale of foie gras, and local actions such as this will fill in the gaps. They've also identified only 4 establishments, although a 5th has recently been identified, that sell foie gras in Brookline. The restaurants La Voile and Barcelona Wine Bar and the Kurds Cheese Shop and Star Market. None of these establishments are believed to rely on the sale of foie gras for their livelihood, and one, the Kurds Cheese Shop, readily decided to replace the product they currently sell with a vegetarian alternative, declared by at least one subcommittee member to be delicious. I understand there is now a 5th purveyor of foie gras in a relatively new business, Marky's Caviar in Coolidge Corner, which, judging from its website, sells a wide range of products, including foie gras. The petitioners concluded their really good presentation by stating that the bylaw will combat animal cruelty, will have only minimal economic impact on the few purveyors of foie gras and the town, will establish a strong precedent for others to follow, and once again will permit Brookline to be a leader in enacting legislation that responds to animal cruelty and sets Brookline apart as a community that supports the humane treatment of animals. The discussion that followed between the petitioners and subcommittee members centered on several housekeeping amendments proposed by members of the subcommittee relating to the choice or use of language, such as the opinion language that appeared in the purpose section of the original article and use of the word person versus entity in the definitions section. These amendments were accepted by the petitioners as friendly amendments. A subcommittee member wisely asked if the petitioners had reached out to the known purveyors of foie gras in Brookline. Reportedly, only one, the Kurds Cheese Shop, responded. Chair Goldstein noted that he had advised the Chamber of Commerce of the hearing in advance. However, no representatives were in attendance at the hearing. Finally, Health and Human Services Director Reese noted she has no concerns regarding enforcement of the proposed bylaw. By a vote of 5 to 1, the subcommittee recommends favorable action on warrant Article 20 as amended. I will add that I understand an amendment has since been filed seeking to grandfather the existing purveyors of foie gras from the proposed bylaw. However, the subcommittee has not had the opportunity to review that amendment. Thank you.
Would you do me a favor, Jocelyn, and simply repeat what the amendments constitute? Because it wasn't clear to me from the report what differed from the original.
Certainly, they were mostly what I would refer to call housekeeping edits and scrivener's
Okay.
edits. So nothing substantive. For example, in the purpose clause, there was quite a bit of opinion language that subcommittee members didn't think was appropriate for a bylaw. So that was changed.
All right, we might want to try to clarify that for the combined reports, just so people understand, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Certainly.
The petitioners would like to add anything to the subcommittee report before we go to questions. This would be a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for that excellent presentation introduction, Jocelyn. We just have a couple of quick things to add, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Aviv, who will start.
Yeah, so as was said before, Marquis Caviar opened in Coolidge Corner after we submitted this article, but we want to note that they only sell 37 foie gras items out of a total of over 700 items that they sell.
And you also might have seen some public comments submitted just yesterday from some of the restaurants that sell foie gras. We have been in contact with all the restaurants that sell foie gras since February and have informed them of every hearing date since then. On February 22nd, Curds & Co., as Jocelyn noted, replied to us and told us that they'd add a plant-based foie gras alternative, but other than that, we hadn't heard anything from any of the restaurants until yesterday when Love Wall and Marquis Caviar submitted comments. And I want to note that in their comment, Marquis Caviar emphasized the fact they're a small business and that foie gras is an integral part of their brand. But they did not mention that Marquis Caviar has 9 locations from here to Florida and that they offer more than, like Aviv said, 700 products, only 37 of which would be impacted by this bylaw. At Marquis, you can buy a container of caviar for more than $1,000. And in their comment, Love Wall said that they would, and I'll quote, love to continue the conversation about how we can create a balance that respects both ethical standards and the culinary heritage, end quote. But nowhere in their comment did they say that they oppose this article or that they support the proposed amendment to it, just that they want to continue the conversation. And to that, I would say we too would love to have that conversation. We've been trying to have it since February, and they haven't engaged with it. And just as recently as last week, I spoke with a classically trained French chef who explained how she's worked to move beyond foie gras. And if Love Wall is interested, we'd be super happy to try and connect them with her. Ari, you have something too? I'll hand it over.
Yeah, we also wanted to mention that in Love Wall's comment, they said that they source ethical foie gras from reputable producers. However, as this was in our presentation, Hudson Valley Farms, which is known as the industry standard and seen for producing humane foie gras, was given means by the Better Business Bureau and found as misleading, and a federal judge gave the Animal Legal Defense Fund standing to sue them for false advertising, because even though they don't use metal tubes, they still use plastics flexible tubes, which is still force feeding and inherently cruel.
We also wanted to encourage you to support this warrant article without the amendment to grandfather businesses that already exist in sell foie gras. This is because this amendment would defeat the purpose of our article, which is to stop Brookline's participation in the cruel practices of force feeding of ducks and geese that come along with producing foie gras. And also this amendment contradicts its own original purpose, which was expressed verbally in our hearing with the Brookline Small Business Development Committee, to make Brookline a more hospitable and welcoming place to open new businesses. But the purpose was that they don't want to scare away new businesses, but this amendment doesn't address that. And in fact, grandfathering in this case favors businesses that are already here and not new ones that may come to the town.
Thank you.
Is that everything, Ezra?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So we'll go to questions and comments from the subcommittee, from the committee. I assume David, Mark, will hold off on yours until we get to the amendment discussion.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, Carol Levin.
Hi there. So true confessions, I make a mean chop liver, which is chicken livers with sweet onions, lots of schmaltz, and if I can't get schmaltz, duck fat, because you don't usually see chicken fat, goose fat. And I do buy foie gras. I source it from D'Artagnan, which I remember when I first ordered it from them. They, you know, had stuff on their website about how it's ethically produced here in the US. And in preparation for this evening, I went back to sort of refresh my memory. And the first website that I came across was Serious Eats by Kenji Alt Lopez, which some of you may know is a chef, MIT graduate, who has this website, Serious Eats, where he very analytically and methodically goes through and tells you how to make various things or what's the science behind something that you're cooking. And he went to La Belle Farms in the Hudson Valley, who's one of what he said at the time was 3 foie gras producers, because he thought it too was unethically produced. And I will put the link to this article in the chat so you can read it yourself. But basically what he's telling us, or he claims in this article, is that what foie gras producers in the US are doing is taking advantage of the fact that migratory waterfowl like to gorge before they migrate, and that their natural place where they store fat to prepare them for these migratory journeys is in their liver, in addition to a few other places in their body. And that unlike people who chew their food before they swallow it, ducks and other waterfowl and geese and cormorants swallow their food whole. And though most of the year they're eating grass and bugs and things like that, before they go on their migrations, they'll eat whole fish without swallowing. And that, and in fact, this is not the cruel thing that traditionally, where they had these metal pipes back in France in the olden days, that modern foie gras techniques are really not bad. So I put that link in the chat for those of you who are curious, and I'm not doing him justice as to why he says this isn't what you might think it is. And then the other link I'll put in the chat is to a Dan Barber TED Talk about foie gras. And for some of you who are foodies may know that he's also a famous chef. And he talks about the history of foie gras and how, in fact, there are some producers in Europe who take advantage of the natural inclination of waterfowl and geese to gorge before they prepare to migrate, and that they don't force feed them, and that this is just their natural inclination when you have the food available, that they will gorge themselves in preparation at a certain time of year. And he also, and this is sort of apropos given the time of year it is, that the history of foie gras, that it dates back to ancient Egypt, and that it was the Jews who liked to cook with poultry fat, got an alternative and started using goose fat, and one thing led to another, and the Pharaoh got wind of it, and he loved the foie gras, and it actually followed the Roman Empire and was introduced to France by the wandering Jews. So just it might not be exactly what we think of. And, you know, I've seen the pictures of these big metal pipes, but we do have industrial farming in this country. And if we are to believe Kenji Alt Lopez, in the scheme of things, the way these geese are treated really isn't that bad. And in fact, that the actual quote unquote force feeding is actually a minutes long process. And it's just basically, they put a tube in, a flexible tube, put a certain amount of feed down their throat, pull it out, and the geese go walking away. And that happens 3 times a day. And all they're taking advantage of is the fact, again, as I said, this migratory urge to gorge, and the fact that they don't have teeth. They don't have a gag reflex like we do. And we have to be careful with animals of, what's the word? Attributing to them our own reflexes and feelings about things. So I, commend you guys for bringing this forward. I don't support it because I'm not a vegetarian. And I think if I was a vegetarian, then I'd feel otherwise about it. But I'm not sure if modern foie gras production techniques are really any worse than our beef raising techniques or pig raising techniques or chicken raising techniques. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why we should, single this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Shira, we'll get to you at the end unless someone has a specific question.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the wording. We very carefully worded this. Carol, thank you for pointing that out. We read that article early on in this process, and it's a very good point. We carefully worded this only to ban force feeding, foie gras that is a result of force feeding. So it is exactly what he says in the article, where he says, ban the practice, not the product. If foie gras can be produced in a way that doesn't harm the animals, it doesn't require force feeding, this article does not ban it. It only bans foie gras as a result of force feeding. So it is in line with exactly what you're saying.
So I have to ask, who's defining what force feeding is, and how is the market going to know what products qualify and what are banned?
Currently, all foie gras produced in the United States is the result of force feeding.
Carol, are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Shira. Janice Khan.
Hi, thanks, Harry. So I did attend the Small Business Development Committee. I am sort of quoted in their minutes. I first want to say how excellent this group of high schoolers has been in defining and showing the problem that is so concerning, and I share that concern with you. I want to say that at the meeting, I just want to add a little bit of context to the Small Business Development Committee. It was really clear that their mandate is to support businesses in Brookline, and that they were concerned that they hadn't actually, there was nobody there from the business community who had weighed in at that point, even though the petitioners had clearly reached out and done the best they could to connect. It was brought up at the committee that especially restaurants cannot make evening meetings because that is when they're working. And so it's not possible for them to really attend the vetting process, which is pretty extensive in this town, and the vetting process, which I appreciate. So it was clear that there were concerns. They weren't sure what to do. I did weigh in a little bit and say that rather than voting it up or down, they had a third option, which was to put together the comments and then offer them to other groups so that they could benefit from the discussion that was happening. And in fact, that's ultimately what they decided to do. They did not do a recommendation. I supported the ban on circuses, and I supported the ban of pet stores. And this feels different to me, and I'll explain why. So this is not the first restaurant product or that this town has dealt with. It's the second that I know of. And the first one was crated veal, which is also vastly inhumane, cruel to baby calves. And so what that group did was, and I don't know if anybody, it's before your times, I can tell, right? It's been a while of that. Oh, trans fats. That's a different thing. We're talking about animal cruelty. So what that group chose to do, which honestly, in thinking about this now, I think would be an interesting path for you to consider. They did it as a resolution. They didn't do it as a town bylaw. And it didn't mean that we didn't take it seriously. It didn't mean that we didn't understand the ethical issues. But it was putting, drawing a line in the sand and saying, in Brookline, we
will not serve crated veal. And I just wonder whether you had thought about a resolution as opposed to a bylaw. There is no other food product that I can think of. Trans fats is different. There's no other food that is on a restaurant menu, which has its own bylaw. And so I just wanted to ask you about this, since it does refer to a very small number of restaurants. That doesn't mean that it's unimportant. Bylaws are important, right? So, yeah, Ezra, if you want to respond. Why not a resolution?
Yeah. I mean, the reason we are going with a bylaw, not a resolution, is because we want it to have an effect. And a resolution is a statement of values, but at the end of the day, is probably not going to change a restaurant's behavior. If a town meeting passes a resolution and there's a place that's selling foie gras, they're probably going to keep selling foie gras after the resolution passes. So if our goal is to reduce force feeding of ducks and geese, to reduce the suffering that it causes, then the way to do that is to actually change what restaurants are selling. And the way to do that is through a bylaw, not a resolution.
So I just wonder, there's obviously nobody on this call now. I just wonder how effective the resolution was banning crated veal. Because that also was it was a pretty robust debate at town meeting when that was passed, and it was broadly passed. So I do have a comment about the amendment too. You don't want to hear any comments on that? I mean,
I think we'll have an opportunity to debate the amendment separately, so I think we can hold off.
Okay. Oh, all right. Thank you. And thank you, Ezra.
Neil, I'll actually get to you in order. I'm gonna sort of put people in the order in which
No, that's fine.
they play. Thank you. Marcus Penzel.
Hi, thanks. So I think I have a couple of questions and maybe a comment. So are there other towns in Massachusetts that have a ban on foie gras sales?
May I respond?
Go ahead.
To the best of our knowledge, this would be the first one, but the state of California has prohibited the sale of foie gras, so has the city of Pittsburgh, and the production of foie gras is banned in a dozen or so nations.
Okay. And does has there been any state legislation ever introduced in Massachusetts to ban the sale of foie gras?
Yes. A handful of years ago, there was a bill introduced that then sort of disappeared. But then just this session again, basically at the same time that we're filing this bylaw, a state level bill was introduced again. And so in the same way that, when we did the Traveling Animal Acts bylaw last year, we were the 15th municipality to do so, and that sort of set the stage for similar legislation to pass this past January on a state level. We're hoping that passing this in Brookline can help build more momentum towards the state level legislation. And I would add also that while we would be the first municipality in Massachusetts to pass a restriction on the sale of foie gras, there is a very strong precedent in Massachusetts for similar retail bans, such as our own ban on the sale of fur, some of our restrictions on tobacco, which have been not only upheld by the Attorney General, but also by the Massachusetts Superior Court, and federal courts have also upheld when the city of Chicago banned the sale of foie gras. That was upheld by a federal court.
Okay, so and my comment then is, this reminds me a little bit about one of the first warrant articles I worked on in a subcommittee, which I think involved the sort of related to the banning of sex trafficking in hotels. And there was a move to sort of impose various restrictions and requirements on Brookline hotels. And we ultimately decided that we ended up scaling it back, and the petitioners scaled it back because it basically would put hotels in Brookline at a competitive disadvantage and basically move business to surrounding communities like Newton and Boston. And so I'm thinking here it's very similar, that if Boston and Newton and the immediately adjacent communities still allow for the sale of foie gras, you're not going to really help a lot. And I agree, it's a abhorrent practice. And I looked at your photos, and I don't eat foie gras, unlike a previous commentator. But nevertheless, it's simply, people are just going to shop out in Boston or Newton or wherever, and it's not going to help a single goose. And I just Googled, and you can buy foie gras online. So, no goose help there. I mean, I think this is really an issue that needs to be addressed on a broader scale. And although we can sort of show that, take a stand, and for want of a better phrase, virtue signal that we believe in this, I don't think it's going to do one whit of good. So and I also asked the question, if I don't eat veal, but I guess we don't have a veal ban, and if I believe fully in climate change, I need to be a vegan. So, but I'm not. So, I mean, I just don't. It raises all sorts of issues, and which are complex, and I just don't. I mean, I still haven't made up my mind how I'm going to vote, I don't think, but nevertheless, I don't see that it's really going to do any good. Thanks.
Thank you. Cliff Brown.
Can we just respond to Marcus's comment?
At the end, right?
At the end, please.
At the end.
So I don't like liver, okay, of any kind. So I'm not going to address anything related to that. I just want to comment on comments that were made by the petitioner with respect to some of the small businesses. I was actually pretty surprised to see Marky's listed, Marky's Boston, because Marky's is a very large internet seller of fine foods, and I wonder whether or not the store in Brookline and the other 7 around the country, where they are, whether or not those are owned by Marky's, or whether or not those are franchises. And to the extent they are franchises, then I think the economic discussion is extraordinarily different. Food sales, the food industry operates on ridiculously thin margins as it is. And if you're a franchisee of something, it's going to be even that much more difficult. So I do think that there's perhaps some information there that might have been overlooked. The other thing with respect to, and I'm only saying this because, Dennis, because it was mentioned by the petitioner, but as it relates to the amendment, the difference between existing businesses and new businesses, it's not giving the existing businesses a benefit. What the issue is, thank you, Marcus.
Just keep talking, please.
Yeah. What the issue is that the folks who are here, they came here with an existing set of rules. And that's why they're being asked, it's proposed to be grandfathered. Anyone who comes in after, they're entering a market with a set of rules that they don't have to, that they can apply to their business. Whereas the folks who are here already, they didn't have that set of rules. That's the distinction. Not that, gee, you're giving the folks who are here a benefit and protecting them against competition. That's the way I would view it. Thanks.
Thank you, Cliff. Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. So this is just, let me speak to the resolution first. So if you want to make the case to 255 town meeting members or 263, if you want to count the at-large and so on. That this is a bad idea and not a nice practice. So be it. But it's not going to change the behavior of the retailers, and it's not going to change the behavior of their customers. And so if we as town meeting just want to feel good that we don't like this practice, raise your hand, put your hand down, we can all go home and have no effect. I suspect that the veal ban has had no effect in and of itself as a town meeting resolution. Separately, the competitive disadvantage is an argument that we heard on the plastic bag ban, the styrofoam ban, the tobacco bylaws that we passed. So be it. I don't think we lost any businesses as a result, but we heard the arguments, and to the extent that we might adversely impact the business that is engaging in a practice that we would prefer they not engage in, well, then so be it. So be it. I'd ask one, what is the time from first disclosure to town meeting, and then after town meeting, the amount of time for implementation? One thing that Anthony Ishak has said to us many times in proposing tobacco legislation is that the tobacco retailers in Brookline have plenty of time to fill that shelf with some other product. And I suspect that the same argument can be made here. And so, I just, this is the right thing to do or not. And I don't think grandfathering bad behavior is something that we ought to engage in. And I just don't buy the competitive argument that, we'll do bad things because if we don't do it, somebody will do it in Boston. No, thanks.
Thank you. Alec Lebovitz.
Thanks, Harry. Neil really captured a lot of what I wanted to say, so thank you, Neil, for going first. Yeah, I think what's really remarkable about the options on the table in front of us is that there's already a compromise version of this that's been agreed to by the impacted business community. So if that's, an overriding concern for individuals on this committee, I'd recommend supporting the amendment. I really agree with Neil that I don't see a resolution here as being particularly useful really in either direction. I would much prefer to just take a vote on the amendment and then a vote on the article. I plan to support the article either way. I would maybe offer maybe some unsolicited advice to the petitioners that I think the amendment may improve the odds of the article's passage at town meeting. But as I said, I do support either version of the article. And I also just want to join Janice and others in really commending the petitioners on their presentation. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, it really was pretty remarkable. I saw their presentation at the select board. I've done a couple of these citizen petitions on my own, and I think you guys put pretty much all of the presentations I've seen of citizen petitions to shame. And I will say, regardless of how this article turns out, it's always so inspiring to see the amazing young people that Brookline schools produce. And I just note for the petitioners, the Brookline Youth Council is currently taking applications for membership for its inaugural body. So if you're interested in maintaining your involvement in municipal affairs and getting further engaged, I'd encourage you to take a look at that. I think you'd be all excellent candidates. Thanks.
Thank you. Elisa Jonas. Lisa, unmute.
Sorry. I also want to commend the petitioners. As you can see, I have my t-shirt on that says protect farm animals, and I completely support everything you've done throughout the years now. I also think the resolution on veal didn't do anything. There was a large enough national campaign that enabled the Massachusetts law to ban crated veal to go through. I don't think Brookline's resolution played anything but a very minor role in that. I agree with Carol that I don't really see the force feeding of ducks and geese that much more cruel, or I don't see it as more cruel than other kinds of factory farmed animals. You know, you just have to look at the movies of just horrible treatment in factory farms. But that doesn't make forced feeding of creatures any better. And if there's an opportunity to reduce cruelty, at least for some small group of animals, I fully support that. Third, and I don't know if there was any link to this article, the Max Planck Institute has now figured out a way for a cruelty-free alternative to traditional foie gras that does not involve forced feeding. I don't know, I don't understand the details of it, but it exists. So if the restaurants are determined to have foie gras, they have that option. Let's see, I think I had, oh, and I think others have already responded to Marcus, but we were the first municipality in the country to ban smoking in restaurants. And we had the same argument that, you know, if you ban smoking here, we'll go to other cities. And here we are, we have a country with smoking banned throughout the whole country. So I see us as being able to be in the forefront of doing good for the world. One more, wait. Oh, I have found it interesting that we have passed laws or resolutions in our town that deal with animal cruelty, but they've only passed because there is no entity doing that in our town. And I think this is our one opportunity to actually show that we actually are concerned about reducing animal cruelty by having a real effect in the town and not just doing something that makes us feel good, but actually has zero effect. And finally, I want to say, I love foie gras. I don't eat it. I'm now vegetarian, but there's a fantastic vegetarian recipe that I'd be happy to share with anyone. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Lee and then Perry and then start with the people who have made comments on the amendments. So far it's David Mark and then Janice. So Lee Selwyn.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Carol raised the chopped liver concern that I have. I was concerned that this could create a slippery slope that would prevent me from having chopped liver. And I must say, Carol, that you've come up with something new that I hadn't heard before that could be blamed on the Jews. So I hope that doesn't go too far. I don't recall the incident that Marcus raised about the hotels. When did that happen? I don't remember it.
It wasn't that long ago. It was
Probably a couple
anti-trafficking
years
article.
ago. Yeah.
Jonathan
2-3
Davis
years
article.
ago.
Because I mean that is at least an indisputably an illegal activity, is it not?
Not what we were asking the hotels to do. Like,
No, the activity that we were attempting to address, though.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
And I think, you know, there's sort of a difference here because this is not indisputably illegal. And in fact, from the conversation that we've been having, it's not even obvious to me that there's general agreement as to whether or not first whether or not there is force feeding, and secondly whether or not the force feeding that exists is actually all that cruel. So you know, I sort of feel I don't see this as being, you know, put in the same category. When we were having this discussion, I went on the Amazon website, and there are at least 15 different foie gras products that are available. So you know, this stuff is widely available, and I am, you know, concerned about just as a general principle, telling Brookline businesses that they can't engage in a lawful activity in Brookline. I think the amendment might help, but it still disturbs me that we somehow, to sort of make a broader point about what some believe to be a societal issue, we kind of pick on our own merchants. So I can't support this for that reason, and also because I just don't think that the petitioners have made the case as forcefully as they have to. I don't think it's anywhere close to the hotel situation that Marcus raised.
Thank you. Perry Grossman.
Yep. Hi there. Thank you very much. Thanks to the petitioners for bringing awareness to this issue. I have to say the force feeding looks disgusting, and I'm not convinced by the argument that force feeding is a natural thing, as done before migration, and thus it's okay to do in this process. And whether animal or human, it looks like a gross process. Regarding doing actions in just Brookline, I think that every little bit helps. Yes, some purchases will move elsewhere, but we can make it harder, and our voice in this does matter. I think as well that a bylaw change is stronger than a resolution. And regarding changes in the market and challenges for businesses, yes, I am very concerned about our small businesses, and we need to protect them. But regarding the circus warrant article, people said, well, there are no circuses in town, so why create the warrant article? And now we have some instances of sales, and people are saying, don't challenge those businesses that are having sales. But I think we do need to force change on this issue. And I'm against a compromise version. I'm against an amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. David Mark, you had comments on the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. I'm going to, I wanted to do a couple things. I wanted to first read the amendment because I'm not sure if it was in the agenda packet. I just wanted everybody to know exactly what the wording is. And then I do have several comments on why I think we should vote that down, but I'll wait my turn in line for that. So
Well, actually,
Go ahead.
we're doing comments now. So if you have comments that aren't on the amendment, put your name in the list, I'll call you. If you have comments on the amendment, put your name in the list, I'll call you, but we're not doing this all night.
I understand that. That's why I said I'd wait my turn. So the amendment as submitted by Christopher Muddy said moved to amend the motion offered by the proponents by inserting the following at the end of section 3A. Provided, however, that this bylaw shall not apply to persons, food establishments, food service establishments, retail establishments, or any agent of any of the foregoing that was so selling or offering for sale foie gras as of the date of approval by this bylaw by town meeting. So that is what is before us for the amendment. I'm sorry that the petitioner for the amendment is not here tonight, but at the proper time, I'll comment on that.
I guess my point was, this is the proper time. If you want me to put you back on the list at the end, I'm happy to do it, but we're taking comments now.
Okay, I can do it. So I'm going to urge a no action vote on the amendment for several reasons. AC and town meeting had no problem outlawing lawful circuses, but this one is actually about animal cruelty that we know is a cruel practice, and it would not outlaw the non-force feeding ways of making the food. If you're against this article, just vote no. It's a much simpler, much cleaner way to do it than voting on this amendment. If you vote yes on this, what you're really doing is that you're sanctifying animal cruelty in our municipal bylaws. You're saying that these establishments can serve food that was derived from animal cruelty legally. Now, what happens if another restaurant opens next door to one of these and they want to sell it too, and they find out that, oh, we're not allowed to sell it, but the place next door can? there could be a lawsuit if there's a double standard there. I think we need to be consistent about what we're talking about. If we can, outlaw circus animals and things like that, we should be able to take a stand on this as well. And I think that if we do pass this amendment, it's going to result in boycotting those establishments by a significant portion of our population, which I don't think is in the restaurant's best interest. And again, if you're against this, simply vote no on this. If you vote to exempt these things, you're completely undermining the whole bylaw. There's no reason to pass the bylaw if you have this amendment in there. So keep it simple. Vote no if you don't like it, but this amendment is a mess. That's what I like.
Thank you. Janice Kahn?
Yes, thank you. And I also did some research. So there was a mass bill in 2009 on crated veal, banning crated veal. And our amendment was passed in 2010, so it was active. There is currently a bill at the state level to ban foie gras this way. So doing a resolution, to me, it still is a path forward, because I believe it needs to be done at the state level to have any real impact. So as to the amendment, and it's important to me that the person who put forth this amendment is from the Small Business Development Committee. He's a member of that committee. So clearly this is, again, a kind of uneasiness in the business community about this bylaw. And I think that should be noted. My question, though, and maybe Jocelyn can clarify this, is so zoning amendments do not look backwards, they only look prospectively. My understanding is bylaws don't do that. They're for everything before and after. And I'm just wondering if you can actually do an amendment like this that bans it up to a certain date. But even if you can, I totally agree with David Mark. It makes no sense. Either you are against it or you're for it. It makes no sense to have carve-outs. If you're concerned about the business community, don't support the article and take it to the State House. Yeah.
Janice, you're free to direct your questions to whomever you like. I would point out that town council is here at the meeting.
Oh.
And has been.
So that's great. I didn't see it, not on my screen. So town council, could you please clarify whether this amendment is even a possibility to do in our bylaws?
Good evening, Joe Callahan, Town Council. I understand the amendment would allow existing establishments that sell foie gras to be able to continue that. That would be fine. Yeah, that would be enforceable. And as a general bylaw, you could have it effective the date the AG's office approves it, but the existing establishments would be grandfathered in. Grandfathering is permissible. Actually, the term is out of use. I forgot what we're supposed to be using in place of grandfathering, but grandfathering is permissible.
All right, thank you very much for the clarification.
Jocelyn, you were next on the list.
Thanks very much, Harry. So I just want to, first of all, I'd like to echo what David, Mark, and Perry said, and I won't repeat their comments, but I agree with them wholeheartedly. I'd like to point out that, people do a lot of pretty terrible things to animals. And, I think that this, Brookline has been a leader, thanks in part to Ezra and his colleagues at Brookline High School, has been a leader in addressing animal welfare issues. And this is a very important one because it only bans foie gras that is produced through inhumane means. And so, whatever recipe folks have come up with, I think Elisa referred to a vegetarian version, that's great. And Kurds, which is one of the, I believe, 5 purveyors of this product, readily agreed that they would switch over to the vegetarian version. So I think we have an obligation, to bring public awareness to this issue. guessing that a lot of people don't know how foie gras is made, similar to the rodenticide bill, which brought tremendous public awareness to the damage that rodenticide causes. And there are only of the 4 other purveyors. The Barcelona Wine Bar, I believe, said occasionally they serve it. Star Market reportedly has only 1 product. I just looked at the menu at Lovewell, and by the way, everybody goes there for the onion soup. Everyone knows that. But they do have 2 items on 2 types of foie gras on their menu, but they have lots of other menu items. And so none of these restaurants or distributors are going to lose business for not having foie gras on their menu. We've banned smoking, we've banned natural gas in all but in new buildings. You know, this is another Brookline issue that I think is an important one. And grandfathering these few purveyors, I don't think will be useful for the message. So I'm fully in favor of the original article. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, I think we're ready to hear last words from the petitioners and/or motions.
Sounds good to me. Sarah, this would be your opportunity to weigh in if there's still comments needed to be said.
Very briefly, Ezra first.
Sure. So for one, I think for the concern about taking this to the state level versus acting locally, we also want to see action on a state level, and local action is how you get there. We've seen with our fur ban, we were the 3rd municipality to do so. Now there are 7, and our own state senator, Cindy Cream, introduced the same bill on a state level. With circuses, we were the 15th municipality, and this past January that passed on a state level. So the way to do that on a state level is to start locally, and you can make the argument that someone can just go across to Boston, to Newton, and buy the product. But that's true of everything we do. If it's plastic bags, if it's styrofoam, if it's fur, if we care about something, we want to say that we're not okay with animal cruelty, we're not okay with force feeding ducks and geese, then we just need to ban it. And I think we need to take that stand, be willing to, for just 5 businesses that really don't sell that much foie gras. With tobacco, there were far more businesses that sold far more tobacco. So I think compared to that, the economic impact will be just a fraction of it. And all those businesses are fine.
Shira?
Thank you.
or-
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, I guess we're ready for motions.
All right, so I guess what we'll do is we'll have the subcommittee make the motion, and then we'll take up the Muddy amendment before we make our final vote. So go ahead, Jocelyn.
Thank you. The motion is for favorable action on warrant article 20 as amended.
Somebody needs to be muted. I'm going to mute everybody and then.
No, Dennis,
Sorry,
I just
Harry.
muted the person.
Sorry, Harry. Go ahead, Jocelyn. I apologize. We muted you.
Jocelyn,
by
you have to
accident.
unmute.
We muted everybody in order to.
Thank you. The motion is for favorable action on warrant article 20 as amended.
Oops, I marked it as 25. All right, and someone please move the Muddy amendment, which would exempt the existing retail establishments, and we'll vote on that first.
I will move favorable action on the Muddy amendment.
I will second.
Okay, so we're going to take that first, and then depending upon the result of that, we will make our final recommendation. So we are first voting on whether to amend warrant article 20 to provide an exemption for the existing retail establishments. Ben.
Yes.
Harry B.
No.
Cliff.
Yes.
Anthony.
No.
Catherine.
Yes.
Harry F.
Yes.
David Mark,
No.
Neil,
No.
Susan,
No.
Harry,
No.
Elisa,
No.
Janice,
No.
Alec,
No.
Carol,
Jane.
Pam,
No.
Jocelyn.
No.
Is Danelle here or no?
Danelle is here,
Well,
but
I
he's
don't hear him.
muted.
Linda,
Yes.
Mark,
No.
Fran,
Sorry. No.
David,
No.
Lee. I don't hear Lee.
Lee is here, but he is muted.
Sorry, no.
Okay. Christine.
Abstain.
Okay, so by a vote of 5 in favor, 15 opposed, 2 abstentions, our recommendation is against the amendment. So we're going to now vote on the main motion as originally presented to us by Jocelyn. Ben,
Yes.
Harry B,
Abstain.
Cliff,
Abstain.
Anthony,
Yes.
Catherine,
Abstain.
Harry F,
No.
David Mark,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
Janice,
Abstain.
Alec,
Yes.
Carol,
No.
Pam,
No.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
Linda,
No.
Mark,
I'm persuaded, yes.
Fran,
No.
David,
Yes.
Lee,
I abstain.
Christine.
No.
Okay, so 11 in favor, 6 opposed, and 5 abstentions. Our recommendation is for favorable action on warrant Article 20. I think, Jocelyn, you have a lot to include now in the report. I don't envy you. Thank you to the petitioners, and thank you to the subcommittee. Harry, you want to give a quick update on the next week or so?
Yeah, so we are not meeting this Thursday night. This is the last meeting of this week. We will meet 2 times next week. On Tuesday, the 29th, we are doing basically wrap up on the budget, including conditions of appropriations and CIP requests. And on May 1, we are doing the warrant Article 24, the real estate transfer tax, and I believe, assuming that we have a report back from the ad hoc subcommittee, we will be taking up the DPW budget. And I think I see Alec nodding his head.
Got a quick question for you, Harry. I thought we were taking up warrant Article 10 and the CPA on the 29th.
I think we have a
Yes,
few.
warrant articles 9 and 10. 10 is
yeah.
the CPA, 9 is the budget. Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
We're doing both.
Quick question
And
on the
it's
budget. Are we
budget minus schools and minus DPW at this point. It's all the other things that are other than because the full budget won't be voted until after the full non-school budget won't be able to be voted until after we take up the DPW, and the full budget will happen after we get a school recommendation out of the town school partnership.
But I believe we're scheduled to take the DPW up on yes,
On Thursday.
afterwards. Yes, on Thursday.
Yeah, on Thursday.
Stand
Yeah.
corrected.
Comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
I just wanted to comment that the ad hoc subcommittee is meeting hopefully for its last meeting on Thursday at 5 o'clock. If anyone is interested in participating or watching.
This
Um,
coming Thursday, the 24th.
This coming Thursday at
Right.
5 o'clock. We have asked Aaron for some materials that we had asked for before. So I'm hoping that we will see them before the meeting so that we don't have to schedule another meeting. But tentatively currently it's Thursday at 5.
And let me just add that this meeting, as we discussed at our meeting in person last week, will be a public hearing. So if you are an interested party or you know others that may be interested parties who want to make their voice heard or pose questions for DPW, please feel free to forward that invite. We're certainly doing our best to contact the impacted groups, but any help on that front is always welcome.
Great. I think that's and so like as Harry said, there's going to, and I think we explained this when we were all together last week. There's going to be, in fact, if Cliff is still here, perhaps he would be willing to explain to the body very quickly what's happening with the school budget.
Well, there's not much to add.
Putting you
from
on the
that.
spot, I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay. There's not much to add from what we discussed last week. I think everyone's waiting to see, what the school committee decides to do next. They are, depending upon whose numbers you want to look at, $1.7 to $2.3 million in the hole. I guess 1.3 to 1.7, I guess is what it is. Because a lot depends on what they do with the building department. $600,000 that they're talking about excluding. The town school partnership is scheduled to meet on Monday at 4 o'clock. I assume at that point in time we will get some additional information. The school committee is probably, I don't know if they're meeting tonight, tomorrow, or Thursday, but they're going to have to make some decisions because May 1st is their deadline for issuing writs. I think that's probably about all I can say right now. There is going to be a public hearing for folks to express their thoughts about the school budget on Wednesday the 30th. And we're still hoping, although I have not had any confirmation yet from anyone in the administration or the school committee, to have the schools make a presentation to full advisory on the 3rd. The 5th, the 3rd. 5th.
I thought it was the 5th.
5th. Sorry. That's all I can tell you right now. I don't have any other information.
Okay, thank you. That was it was basically just reminding of the schedule of the subcommittee public hearing and then when the votes were going to happen. All right, I think that's everything. So we'll see you next week. And please, if you're writing a report for the combined reports, get them done ASAP. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.